Good evening, and you're listening to the third episode of The Lat Lat Show, a podcast launched by the International Council of Malaysian Scholars and Associates, ICMS, where we speak to prominent Malaysians about their former university experiences, how it has shaped their careers, and everything in between. The show is taped in front of a live audience over Zoom, who will have the opportunity to ask the evening speaker questions in a Q&A session at the end. The show is also concurrently being live streamed onto our Facebook page. Do follow our Instagram ICM Scholars to keep up to date and to join as a live audience member for future episodes. To our guests present here tonight, the viewers on Facebook Live and listeners of the podcast, welcome to the show. Allow me to introduce the moderators of the show, Win Chong and I myself, Brian Tia. Joining us tonight is Mark Cope, the co-founder of Superhands and strategic director of Pestle and Mortar. Mark is a graduate of Australia, having completed his bachelor's degree at the University of Sydney in 2003 with a triple major in marketing, finance, and economics. Mark, thank you for joining us this evening and welcome to the show. Before we proceed, we would love it if you could give us a brief self-introduction and Win will follow up with the questions. The stage is yours, Mark.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, 2003. Oh my goodness. That's like such a long time ago. Yes. So yeah, you guys can sort of figure out my age. All right. Hey guys, my name's Mark. I'm Malaysian, but I sort of moved off to Australia. I got shipped off to Sydney when I was, I think about 16, 17. I did my year 10, year 11, year 12 in Sydney in school. And then I progressed on to the University of Sydney. As Brian mentioned, I did a bachelor's degree. And then after that, I continued working in the banking and finance industry for a number of years before moving back to Malaysia. At this current stage, what I do is I work with a company, or I run a company called Superhands. We're a data labeling platform for machine learning clients. I also help out or work with another company called Pestle and Mortar Clothing. They're a streetwear brand based out of Malaysia. Apart from that, from a hobby perspective, I do a lot of sport. So I'm really into, cycling, running, I do a bit of swimming, rock climbing, mountain biking, just started tennis. So I'm always up for different sort of activities and sports. Yep, that's me in a nutshell.
All right, thanks Mark for that intro. We'll be getting into a lot more detail. Hopefully you'll be reflecting on your life by the end of this. Just for everyone in the audience, my name is Win and I'll be taking us through the first half of the questions. So Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said year 10, year 11, year 12 in Sydney, right? Yeah, so I just wanted to ask you, how did you navigate through all the cultural differences between Australia and Malaysia at that age?
Yeah, so I guess the decision to move off, my parents decided to just throw me into the deep end. And I think that's the culture in my family. Is very much, they always push you to exceed, right? They always want you to do more. Maybe it's a typical Asian thing. And then the school that they found for me in Sydney, it's called St. Ignatius College, Riverview. It's based in Lane Cove. And it's a predominantly white school. I got there and I was in boarding school basically for the X number of years, right? In terms of like Asian buddies, there were only maybe about, I could say like 5 of us. But maybe it's that just instinct to just make friends and just connect with people. So yeah, I think just being able to have conversations and just be yourself, I think was really helpful in terms of making friends and connecting with people there. Yeah, I actually really loved the cultural difference, and that was the main reason I also decided to go to the University of Sydney. I realized it was a lot more multicultural and a lot more local. And that was really the kind of experience I wanted, right? I wanted to go into a country and really immerse with the country itself and get to know as many people as I can from different walks of life and different cultures. And yeah, that's what I did. So I think going in there and sort of embracing that and knowing that's going to happen just helps you to adapt just really quickly into that group.
Yeah. So did you find anything particularly difficult with, speaking to different races and stuff like that? Because I have a similar background as you, so I'm just trying to see whether you had the same issues or anything like that,
Yeah, the hardest thing, right, which is really funny. It might be a bit racist. I don't know if I should say this here, but everyone looked the same. Like I was like, oh my God, it's a white guy. Everyone's the same. So it was very hard for me to sort of differentiate for the first week, like who was who. And everyone was like, they're so friendly at school. So everyone was just, oh, hi, my name's Richard. Hey, my name's like David. And next minute, I'm like, oh my God, is this guy Richard or is it David? I can't really put a finger to it, right? But after a couple of obviously weeks, then, you know, and you're living with people. So then you get, okay, right. You start to understand the differences a lot quicker. But that was the first like thing that hit me in the first week of going to school in Sydney.
All right. Okay. So just
language was also tough, right? Because everyone had a different accent. So you're like, oh, wow, yeah, that's very different. How do I pick this up? But after a while, you know, again, you just get used to it.
Okay. Yeah. So just moving on from your high school life, and now we're going towards your uni life. So you moved to the University of Sydney. I understand that you had a very, very social life, and just wanted to know a little bit more about that. And also, what is your opinion about the stereotype that, you know, the first year of uni is the party year, and then it just goes downhill from there and gets serious. Just want to know what you think about that.
Is that really the stereotype? Is that true?
I think that's what it is now.
Yeah. So okay, I didn't know that, but it was the case. So at school, right? I have to say I was pretty good at school. So and then when I went to uni, I was like, oh my God, the freedom, I love this. This is amazing. So then there was like parties, and you know how like, okay, university at that time, because obviously of the ability to be very, very sociable, to be very social with everyone, you know, there's just so many parties going on, a lot of different groups and catch-ups and meetups. The bars were always like there. So the first year of uni was actually really fun. I partied a lot, hung out with a lot of people, and I guess, again, going to the University of Sydney was one, because a lot of my friends from school were going there as well. So it was actually quite fun. Yeah, and then second and third year, that's when I started to go like, hey, hang on, this is not great. So then you start to become a lot more serious and put your head down and just get it going, because you realize then, okay, I need to apply for jobs when I get out, right? So then that reality hits you. Whereas after school, you go like, okay, I've gotten into uni, so that's the first hurdle done. Now it's like, yes, I can do whatever I want. But then after that, you realize, okay, there's work after that that you need to think about.
Yeah. So that's exactly where we're transitioning to. So you've had your really fun first year. Now, like, you know, second and third year is coming in, and you know, the assignments pile in, all the work's coming out, all the lectures that you have to attend to. So I was just wondering, how did you navigate yourself through all the academics? Because you said you were really, really, like, I guess you were really good at school, right?
I was okay at school. But let me tell you this. So I signed up for something for computer science, right? And in the day, like comp science was, it wasn't a popular course. So I did like comp 101, and I got in there and I was like, man, I don't understand what the hell this was. So we're learning like, you know, Java and C++ and all that. And I was like, man, this is tough. So I actually, I paid someone to do the assignment for me. This is my first year of first semester. And then when I came down to the presentation, I had to go up there and present. And obviously the lecturer realized that I bullshitted my way through. And then obviously I failed. And from then on, I said, okay, maybe I shouldn't do Comp 101. I shouldn't do computer science. Ended up doing commerce. But yeah, as you know today, I work with a tech company. So it's come back to bite me.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, the commerce degree that you did was pretty heavy, right? Like, surely you had to be like studying quite a lot and, like, you know, ramping up in like the effort levels and stuff like that as you progress towards that year.
Yeah, I think that's also why I picked marketing. I realized that marketing was a degree I could ace. But the degree that the major that I really like enjoyed was actually econs and finance. But I realized that I was able to ace the marketing side, and that really helped with getting grades and helping with like scoring. So I guess it's sort of like choosing your classes or the different subjects, right, to help you to score it. So sort of gaming the system itself. But commerce wasn't the I guess the bachelor's that I wanted to do. I realized it before, when I was applying for uni, Initially, the dream was always to be a marine biologist. So it's really, really whacked from what I currently do, right? So marine biology was the subject, the career of choice. And then I remember my dad sitting me down and he's like, "Hey, Mark, are you sure you want to do this marine biology? Like, what are you going to work as when you come out?" So I was like, "Marine biologist." I said, "Oh, you probably have to like go to you maybe have to move to Tasmania or like Cairns or somewhere remote." So in the end, he said, "Why don't you just put that as a course that you want to do? Or you can do that later, but why don't you do commerce first and do your bachelor's degree of commerce?" I was like, "Yeah, that's great, Dad, thanks." So I put Bachelor of Commerce, got that. And then after finishing it, obviously the last thing I want to do is go back and study, right? So he was pretty smart, realizing that let me dangle this carrot, let me finish the commerce course. And then I would realize that, no, I don't want to go back and study marine biology anymore.
That's Asian manipulation at its finest. Yeah. So besides the grades and all the scores, did you take part in any societies or, hunt for any internships for commerce and stuff like that? Because that's very big for our year right now. All the uni students majority of them are like on LinkedIn, getting into that toxic LinkedIn culture and just competing for internships and stuff. So what is your opinion on that?
So in the day, during my time, there was no LinkedIn. So everything was, yeah. So for us, for commerce, like we applied to a lot of banks for internships. We applied to financial planning institutions. So there's financial services was big at that time. So that was an area that I got into. So I worked in an internship program with a company in Sydney. And it was basically a boutique financial planning practice, maybe about 30 people, but they manage money for a high net worth group of people. So it was quite a good learning curve for me. And I did that for a couple of months. And after that, when I graduated, they offered me a full-time role, which I then took. So that path was a very interesting path because I built a very close relationship with the owner of this business. And then, till today, we're still friends. Compared to me maybe going into a bank, right? But I think internships are crucial, especially now when I look at interns who come on board at Super Hands or even at Pestle Motor. I think having interns or the internship program is important, and where you choose to do your internship is important, because the last thing you want to do is to go into a company and just be a lackey, not doing anything that can create impact. Whereas when I worked with this smaller company, I was able to do a lot of things instead of doing filing or something in the day, right? So in the day, they always said, "Oh, if you go to a big company, you end up doing filing." Whereas if you go to a small organization, you might be able to play a part in the day-to-day process of the organization, which is what I did. Apart from, you mentioned internships, societies, I didn't really participate much in societies, but I did a lot of sport at uni, and I was at the gym, meeting people there. I played football, played basketball at uni, so that's how I got to sort of connect with different people as well. Obviously, there was a Malaysian society which I was a part of. I did show up, and I still know some of the people there today, and they're all moved back here in KL. So it's actually important to just be a part of these different organizations, right? Because you never know who they are, all right, who you might meet along the way. So I think what you guys are actually doing here as well is so important.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for that. Brian, do you want to come in and just
Yes, Mark. So Win and I actually talked about this, and it is an issue very close to heart because, as university students, we have endless possibilities out there, but with endless possibilities, there's endless uncertainties as well. So as a person who can't even decide what to eat for dinner, how are we supposed to decide our career path if we're interested in, for example, making coffee at one side, total conservation in the other side, and to see so many people, for example, friends around us taking up consulting jobs in like BCG or something like that. So how do we really truly live at our own pace? How do we really decide what we want to work on? And even if it is not prospective, even if it is not like we can't monetize it, how do we allocate time and effort in everything we do to actually achieve fulfillment?
Wow, that's a deep question.
Perhaps you could provide us with your take on that.
Yes, yeah. I don't think it just applies to to you guys, like just making that career choice. It applies to me now, right, as well, making decisions. And what I do a lot of is I write. So I do a lot of reflection, being self-aware of who I am, what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are. I think a lot about how I feel when I'm doing certain things. So you could say it's journaling, right? And have a set of questions that I ask myself, like every time I open up my Google Keep or my Evernote, and I just put some points down. Okay, so how do I feel today? And this helps me to sort of gauge if I'm happy with where I am in life and what's going through my mind on a day-to-day basis. So by penning these things down, and then I like to draw. So then I'll draw charts. Right? I use something called Miro board, and it's a virtual board which I can create post-it notes on, and I can mind map. So I'm mind mapping life, right, and decision making, and I'm able to put down why certain things should be done and why certain things shouldn't be, and why am I happy doing this and why am I happy not doing this. So there's no like right or wrong answer, but at least when you've made a decision of, say, a career choice, then perhaps you would understand the reason you've taken that path, right? Whether it's for the social cause of it, or if it's just for money, or if it's for learning. I think that's important. I also write my goals down a lot, so I'm quite goal orientated. I think like my life has always been very much about what I want to achieve and where I want to be. So I do write my goals down, and I put time gaps on them, right? So what do I want to achieve this year? Like, what do I want to achieve in like this quarter? I break that down to like personal. I break that down to like relationships. I break that down to work or like super hands, So then I'm bucketing things, and I'm putting down like targets and goals around these things. And then I'm able to then draw a tree that helps me, or actions that help me achieve this, right? So then if the number one goal here is, okay, I want to, for example, okay, I was trying to raise some money for a charity. And I said, okay, my target is $20,000. And I need to, and then what I'll do is I'll start breaking down the problem into very small bite-sized chunks and actionable steps. So then if I know if I achieve step 1, I'm able to unlock step 2, and step 2, I'm able to unlock step 3. So I created like a game, for myself. And then I'm sort of like pursuing and playing that game of life. I'm not sure if that sort of answers your question.
Yeah, definitely.
I suppose it's reflection, right? Being aware of where you are today, of sort of where you want to go. And you may not know where you want to go, but you know what makes you feel good and what doesn't make you feel good. And you'll kind of know what's right and what's wrong. So by having that already, you sort of like create a map of the next path that you want to take. Yeah. And at uni as well, I mean, I had no idea what I wanted to do. But I realized that, okay, I'll test the internship. I applied for multiple internships. I got a few. I selected one, and I stuck by the path that I chose. So I let the dice, if you say it's a dice, right? But I guess it was a very conscious decision to pick that path because of these reasons, right? Because I wanted to learn on the job. So then which opportunity will allow me to learn on the job more than the other?
Yeah, understood. I believe it is, I agree with that, because a bird's eye view of where you want to go, it makes you less consumed by the present and the past. And yeah, it definitely offers some guidance on how we're supposed to charter our path to the future. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for that, Mark, for answering my personal question.
The other thing also on this is, sometimes you always compare, right? And it's very common for us to compare, and you're very competitive. I'm an extremely competitive person. So I'm comparing myself all the time, and that can be very dangerous as well, because it can put you into that hole of like sadness of like, oh my God, this person is here. I'm only here. I haven't done this. So if you start to compete, and I mean, competition is important, but comparing yourself and judging yourself against like peers can be tough, right? So that's why it's important to know what that path that you want to take. And then if you're on your path and you're achieving those things, then you know like, okay, right, I am on the right path and I'm successful in my own right. I don't have to be successful in what social aspect tells me is the right thing, or what my parents say is the right thing, right?
Yep, exactly. However, it is definitely hard to tell ourselves that, what we're doing is right when a society tells us otherwise. So, however, I think there comes to a point where we really should put a foot down and decide what's right for us. Back to you, Win.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Brian. Mark, I can completely relate on the competitive. That area, I can completely relate to you, especially with all the social media nowadays and all the posting and stuff. But I think we'll go back a bit to your uni life a little bit. So you did say just now that, you just told us all this advice, but I'm sure like, when you're about to graduate uni, all this journaling advice, all this like breaking down problems, like it's not there yet. So how did you find yourself in banking, and like, was it like peer pressure as well? Because going from marine biologist to banking is a bit, I don't know, a bit sus, and just like, how did you find yourself there actually?
Yeah, so yes, I didn't like journal a lot. I didn't put a lot of goals down at uni, right? I wish I sort of knew a lot of these things, but I guess that's what my parents were there for. They really helped to guide me and said, right, that's why I did the commerce degree, right? It was their influence on that. And in terms of, like I said, in terms of banking and finance, like, yeah, it was purely from having these. I realized, okay, I always thought that, okay, if you go into a bachelor's course, you need to go into banking, right? However, now if you look at the world, that doesn't matter at all. The degree doesn't have to doesn't mean that you have to go into banking because you've done a commerce degree, or as a computer science graduate, it doesn't mean you have to code. Doesn't mean you have to be a computer science engineer. You don't have to be an engineer, right? You could generally do anything you want, because as an employer now, we hire people not purely for the course that they've done at uni. That's only like one small part of it, right? But you hire for mindset. You hire for the hunger, the attitude of individuals, more so than, all right, computer science means the guy has to be working in computer science. We just hired this guy today. He is a computer science graduate, but he's going to sales because he's now going to help us to sell the product, which is an engineering product, to engineers. So I guess you don't have to box yourself into that. And I guess in the day, maybe we were a bit more boxed into it. Whereas now you don't have to be.
Okay, cool. So just for the audience, some people in the audience who really see themselves going into that corporate life, could you just describe to us like how do you describe the Australian, banking, corporate, finance lifestyle, or if you could make a comparison to Malaysia?
Well, it's changed a lot, right? Since I was in banking then. So I work for a bank there called St. George Bank. St. George Bank is now Westpac.
Okay.
I worked within a division of that. It was called Asgard Wealth Solutions. I don't know. I think they still exist. So it was corporate. It was competitive. I'm not sure. I can't really comment in terms of how different it is to here in Malaysia, because I've not worked here in KL for any sort of corporate institution before. So I can't put a finger on that. But friends I speak to at banking here, some people love it, some people don't. So depends on personality. There's no right or wrong.
Yeah. Did you find yourself unhappy working in that kind of structured hierarchical system?
Yes, to a certain extent. But I put my head down and I was just churning numbers. So I was like, okay, right, I'm just gonna churn like portfolios out, because that was something that I was tasked to do. And I created again a bit of a game. So I competed against my peers to become the best in that role. But no one knew I was competing against them. It was in my mind. I was like, oh yeah, what's your numbers? Let's just like look at your numbers. And I was just like play with it on my own, right? Just to trick myself into becoming better.
Okay. So was there anything to do with the corporate life or anything to do with your job that kind of springboard you off like Australia and you want to come back to Malaysia? Because I'm trying to slowly see how you went from, deciding like, okay, I'm going to go back to Malaysia now.
All right. Yeah. So I realized at that stage, I wanted to set up my own business. And I realized there was a lot more opportunity to do that within Southeast Asia, especially in the tech industry. I realized that Southeast Asia, Malaysia, for example, is a growing economy. There are a lot of inefficiencies in the ecosystem, and where the inefficiencies, there are definitely opportunities. So then I realized, okay, I want to be back in Southeast Asia to take advantage of this, whether it's in Malaysia or it's in Singapore or somewhere else. So the decision to leave Australia was, one, looking for opportunities outside. Secondly, I wanted a change of pace. I realized that at that time I was in a very monotonous state over there. I was waking up, going to work, and then having my social life outside, and then just coming back and then going to work again. So it was very monotonous, and I realized that, hey, I wanted something different. And also by that time, I've been away for over 12 years. I wanted to move back to Malaysia because I wanted to be closer to my younger sister, who I guess I didn't grow up with when I got sent away to school. So there are multiple pronged decisions to help me to make that choice. And that's when I decided to move back to Malaysia. And zero regrets whatsoever. Initially, it was supposed to be a 2-year thing. So I still had my car and have all my stuff there. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll come back. So I'll see everyone soon. But it's been over 10 years now. I've sold everything. I've got nothing left back there. And I decided to permanently put myself back here in Malaysia. And I realized then that just leaving Australia, it doesn't mean I can't go back, right? So I still go back to Oz, every year or every 2 years. And it's just about making that a priority. So I still have all my friends there, and I still keep in touch with everyone there. Some people there. So yeah.
Yeah.
That was the transition back to Malaysia, and that's how I made that choice.
Yeah. So might be a more personal question. Did you have to, leave your girlfriend or anything, or make any big personal decisions to leave?
Actually, no. So I didn't. So maybe that made it a lot easier. Yeah. I think, if I had, then maybe that would have been tougher. I don't know if I believe in long distance relationships, but actually, maybe I do. Yeah, I've been through that.
So we're going to touch on that here, but another thing I would ask is, you said Southeast Asia for the opportunities and stuff. What made you pinpoint that, okay, it's going to be Malaysia, it's not Singapore, it's not Vietnam, it's not Thailand, it's Malaysia?
I think because of the network that I've got here, right? So the family's here. So I use that as an anchor, and then I could apply for jobs overseas if I needed to, into different countries. Yeah. And I suppose Malaysia is good because it's, I love traveling, right? So being in Malaysia, you're super close to everything. Whereas, in Australia, you're just really far away from everything. And I guess that's why I just love being out here in Malaysia. Whether it's Malaysia or Singapore, it's, it could be anything. But if you ask me today, I wouldn't move to Singapore because for me, I'm very, like I mentioned, I'm very outdoorsy. And I realized that I need that of Malaysia. And thank God, I wasn't there during the lockdown because it'd be tough. Being locked down in Malaysia is not too bad.
Yeah, Singapore is just built different. All right, Ryan, I'll pass to you for the rest of the questions.
Yes, thank you, Win. So Mark, thank you so much for the first half of the interview. So right now we'll be talking about your babies, pestle and mortar, and also super hands. So for example, so the first question, so coming from the monotonous corporate lifestyle of banking in Australia, how do you find yourself starting from the ground up and creating something completely fresh like pestle and mortar? I'm sure it was a lot more energizing, and it was a lot less boring because there wasn't really a structure to follow. And in other words, where did the entrepreneur in you come from? Was there something in particular that sparked an idea, or was it an opportunity that you saw, or was it something that you have planned for years on end?
The first, so what I knew was I wanted to set up something on my own, and I think that DNA came from my dad. He also had his own business, so I think from young he sort of instilled that in me, that this is a good way to go. So the first thing I set up was a scuba diving company. So it was really random. And it was because I just really, really loved scuba diving. And in the earlier days, in my 20s, I couldn't afford like all these nice trips to like Maldives or going to Bali or going to like Raja Ampat or Komodo. So all these remote locations where, it's just going to cost you thousands and thousands of bucks. So what I did was I set up this company with a couple of friends to run dive trips. It was called Great Ocean Divers. And that was the first thing we did. We didn't make a lot of money. It mainly funded a lot of my trips. So I took people from across like Malaysia and Singapore on dive trips. So I met really random people and I really enjoyed that. So that was the first thing I set up. And that was purely to fund a hobby. So I wouldn't say it was a business.
So was there anything in particular that you really enjoyed from that experience? It doesn't have to be entrepreneurship related, just going on your adventures and your dives and everything.
Yeah, I think it was just diving, and then also just meeting a whole bunch of different people, right? And a few people I've met on these trips, I still chat to them today. I still know these guys today. So I think it's another way of like building relationships. And at that time, it was just something I enjoyed doing. And it was like going to really remote places that was really tough to get to. You were staying on all these, it could be nice boats. Some of them are really nice yachts. Some of them was really crap, like wooden sampan boats. And it was tough. But I guess all these things like builds character. But I really enjoyed like organizing, these trips, taking people on trips. And we, a lot of marketing as well, because we needed to attract customers. If not, if we didn't have any customers, we wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't be able to go on a trip, right? So I needed to make sure I got people together to go scuba diving. So yeah, that was the first thing.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. As an avid traveler myself, I've been on backpacking trips, and they're nowhere near to they're nowhere near the level of how you've done it. But I'm really excited, and that is an inspiration. There was the backpacking. There was the diving.
So that was, Great Ocean Divers, the scuba diving company. And then the second company I set up, I actually set up a few other things in the past, but a lot of them failed. So, the saying of like, just keep trying until one of them succeeds. So basically like there was a few other things that I created with different friends. Some of them, most of them didn't work out. But another company we set up was something called GVS, or Global Virtual Support. It was an outsourcing company. We essentially ran the call center for a number of companies in Australia, and they were outsourcing their work to us here in Malaysia. So that was the initial, one of the first companies that I built that actually made some cash. And we had about like 40 people doing calls for companies, or outsourcing like support work for companies in Australia. So that was the second company that I built that sort of kind of made it. And that was the initial idea of the whole Super Hands business, because I realized that having people sit in a physical office space wasn't really what I felt passionate about. And I realized that I wanted to build something that was a lot bigger. How do you sort of like create work opportunities for people who can work remotely and work from home? So Super Hands initially was built as a virtual assistant platform. So virtual assistants is actually a PA, right? So how do you give everyone a personal assistant? So that was the initial idea of Super Hands when we created it. So we had people working in Malaysia and the Philippines doing work on this platform for people across Southeast Asia. After, I guess, about a year, we realized it was very difficult to scale the business purely from a quality perspective, and there were multi other factors. So we thought of changing the business model. And that's when we decided to move into the whole AI space. And we realized that there was a big opportunity for something called data labeling, which essentially is training machine learning models. So today, what we do is we build tech. We have a workforce, and we help companies, mainly in the US, train models by data labeling. So that was that, and that's Super Hands. So today we've got about 60 people who work with us here in Malaysia primarily, but we've got a few people working remote as well in different parts of the world. and they work on our on sort of the core technology platform that we built. We've also got agents who basically are the workers who do the labeling work, and we've got about 60,000 of them on this platform itself today.
Yep, that sounds absolutely amazing. How because we're familiar with the amounts of times that you had to micro pivot over and over again. So I'm sure you have done so for your previous businesses, and there might have been instances where you just had to close a company down, or when you saw opportunity, you just went straight for it. How do you know when it was time to give up, and how do you know when it's time to persevere?
I think it's listening to your customers. They'll tell you, if you see repeatability on a growing group of people, then you'll know that, okay, this is something that's worth fighting for. Also the team. So I rely very much on my team itself for feedback. And we've created this culture in the organization that's very transparent. If we feel something isn't right, we want people to speak out as quickly as possible. So the team actually I would give it back to them to say that they're the ones who really helped me to go through that process of pivoting the business from virtual assistants into data labeling. They were the ones that helped me to make that call, right? Because they realized that, okay, based on the data that we've got, this isn't working. Based on feedback that we've gotten from the customers, okay, this isn't the right way to go. So then we moved across into something different. And I think once we've created this culture, if you have this culture in the organization that's very transparent, you're able to move a lot faster rather than trying to fight the red tape. Imagine if I was a boss who made sure that everyone sort of followed my way. I think it'd be very difficult for the organization to be where they are today. I do rely very much on my team to help make those decisions as well.
Yeah, Mark, I just wanted to ask, right, you spoke about the business ideas that you've created and you actually did execute them as well, but then some of them, I guess, failed. Was there an issue with raising capital and, funding and stuff like that? Like, how did you navigate yourself around the issue of money, basically?
Yeah, so we were trying to raise cash for the virtual assistant business. That didn't work out. So that was also another indicator, that we weren't able to get external funding for it from venture cap. We also know that the venture cap industry is very young in Southeast Asia. It's gotten better right now for sure, right? There's a lot more money around, but in the earlier days, it's very rare, very few organizations that actually gave who were willing to invest cash like that. So we went to VCs. We didn't really go to a lot of private investors. And the government did help. There was a program called Cradle. They helped fund the initial virtual assistant platform through a grant, and then after that they followed on in our seed round as well. Yeah, so I think with fundraising, it's tricky, right? A lot of it is because I guess VCs look at the opportunity of the market. Second, they look at the product that you've created or the idea. And thirdly, they always look at the founder and the team that's behind it. And that's how they make this decision in terms of, funding something.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Because just as a finance student, that's something I'm quite interested in. But yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, no problem.
Yep. So Mark, we have a question from the audience from Preston. Preston, would you like to unmute and ask Mark yourself? So if you won't, we'll go 3, 2, 1. Okay, so Mark, so Preston's question was, hi Mark, what's your opinion on location-based pay scale and the future of remote work? With COVID, that has definitely sped up the transition from physical to virtual. What are your thoughts on that?
So yeah, definitely the whole remote working opportunity is really helpful for, I think, for all you guys going into the workforce, because it allows you not just to earn, you just have to limit yourself to just Malaysia, but now you're able to market yourself to a larger, I guess, pool of companies, right? So again, it's how do these companies sort of find you, and if they are open for remote work. If they are, then these opportunities are good. We're definitely open for that too. I think in terms of remote working, we're currently adopting a hybrid model where it's partially in the office and partially remote as well. We realized that going full remote, yeah, it's got its benefits of it, but from a, I guess, organization perspective and culture perspective, it's nice to actually meet like, yeah, your friends or your work colleagues, and being able to like innovate and collaborate together. Sometimes it's quite tough to do that fully remote. That's how we found it. But a lot of companies are going 100% remote, and yeah, I think it's just on the infrastructure that you've created that allows you to do that well. So in terms of, yeah, future of work, of remote work, it's definitely here to stay.
Yeah, on that note, I'm sure the audience and I are no stranger to 100% of remote work, as evidenced by the past 2 years where that was pretty much everything that we've done. So on a lighter note, Mark, how was your COVID? How was your 2020 and 2021?
And 2020 was, I would say, a roller coaster, because
Really?
we had a business to run, and there was so much uncertainty, right, of what was going to happen. We weren't sure when this thing was going to end and if it was going to end, and then how do you sort of create the plan for the business to actually navigate through this. So on the Superhand side, yeah, maybe it was a bit easier because we were already very remote first organization. So we were able to work quite quickly together. We've already built a lot of our tooling for remote working. So it was easy for us to transition into that. In terms of pestle mortar, that was a bit tougher because obviously they're retail business. So having to navigate like shopping mall closures and increase and work towards like having more online marketing was obviously a bit challenging as well. In terms of personal, it was initially, because I guess I'm quite an outdoorsy person, I found it quite tough initially, but like everything, you kind of get into the groove of it and you start to enjoy it. So I actually did enjoy like the whole lockdown for a bit. And I actually adopted a dog as well during that time. So this stray dog just started showing up in front of my house. And eventually we took the dog in and we found out she was pregnant when we were going to vaccinate her. And on the, I think 28th of Feb in 2020, she gave birth to 7 puppies. So during like the whole lockdown, we sort of managed like the puppies and started to try to get them adopted by friends. So we started to market them to a friend, say, oh, hey, get everyone who wants a puppy, and this is the puppy, and here, this is how they're growing up. So I was like just showing people these puppies, and it was a really fun experience, I suppose. So we still have the mum, and we kept one of the kids, or the pups, and got the rest of them adopted by friends.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds incredible to adopt.
COVID was okay. Was okay for us. Yeah.
Was there any habits or hobbies that you picked up? Anything that you sort of like just left it at the start of COVID? How did you stay productive, all throughout then?
Yeah, because it was hard to break down your day, right? Because previously you go to the office and then when you come home, you're like, okay, cool. Now it's chill time. But during the whole like COVID period, it's very difficult to say when was work time and when wasn't work time. So essentially, I was working quite a bit during that period, which was, I guess, natural. And then after a while, you start to break your day and you start to understand like, okay, when is time for lunch, and you start to schedule it, which then helped a lot. I suppose I did a lot more reading during that period. Definitely spent a lot more time online, which was natural. Yeah.
Okay, so that's it for COVID stuff. And right now we'll be asking what I'm most interested about you, and it will be definitely the sports stuff, endurance sports. We know that you're a crazy outdoor junkie, triathlons, long distance cycling, diving, you pretty much do it all. How did you come about to discover your passion for these activities? And just to touch on those obstacles and your handling of them, would you say that doing all of this helps you as a businessman?
I've always been, I guess, quite sporty, right? Growing up, and cycling, I think, was it was just something I picked up, and friends started to cycle a lot more many years ago. So I started cycling maybe about 7-8 years ago, and just progressively enjoyed it more and more. So this is road biking, and from road biking, then I started doing a lot more running, and because of certain groups, I started to do a lot more triathlons. So then triathlons became a thing that I was really interested in, and I enjoyed how I could break down the problem of triathlon. So for example, if I do a half Ironman, I could break down the problem and try to solve it, of how to improve nutrition, how to think about improving the run, how do I train it, how much discipline I need and hours I need to spend on each of these different disciplines. So then, yeah, I guess that's how I sort of approach like triathlons. I looked at it as you sort of gamify it to a certain extent, right? And I really enjoy the challenge of competition. I really enjoy like timing myself and beating my time. And my brother's also quite sporty, and we do a lot of the sport together. So it's always us competing against each other. He was a faster runner, but I was a better cyclist. So every time we did tries, we always ended up at very similar times. So he was always that person I pushed myself to beat. And I really hated it when he beat me as well, when he beat me. So I guess having that yardstick really helped to drive me forward on that. So then that was triathlons. Cycling is something I still do a lot today. In terms of during, I think there was a lockdown that we had last year, and it was only confined to this vicinity and we couldn't cycle. So then I started to run a lot more, and I started to, I don't know if you guys have heard of this app called Strava. So on Strava, it's like a tracking app for cycling, running, and all other sport, right? But you can see segments. So I started to focus on winning segments or becoming quicker than other people in my area at those segments. So I just focused on running during those 3 months and just tried to like win as many crowns as possible. So again, like, yeah, I guess it's like that instinct of just wanting to win that really pushed. How it's related to work and business, I guess it's endurance, right? Like whatever I do today, it's never a short-term outcome that you're going to get. I mean, I've been running super hands for 6-7 years now. It's definitely a marathon. It's not, and they always say like you got to enjoy each and every single day of it. And I guess that's any race that I do or any sort of sport that you do. It's just really enjoying the training, really enjoying the start, really enjoying the whole race, and hopefully finishing well. So that's how I sort of look at work and how it's related to sport, because it's how much endurance, how much pain you can take. So when you're doing like a Ironman, it's how much pain your legs can go through to get to the end, right? So, and I suppose that's just business, or even that's just life, right? Nothing's going to be perfect, and that's how I approach that.
I love your approach in terms of breaking down a triathlon into smaller problems. However, I think if I were to do it, my body will break down before the problem itself. So you know,
to not, right? And that's the cool thing about it. I mean, I was never built for that. And you just if you put your mind to something, I feel like you can really do anything you want. And it's just how much risk you're willing to take.
that sounds really, really hard to achieve for some of us, I'd say, because you know, for some of us, you know, maybe we can run 5K. How should we actually? How is it possible for us to go from 5K to, you know, a triathlon? What approach? What steps or approach will you recommend us to do?
So what I did initially was I found sort of, I call it a mentor or someone who's done it before, right? So I found like someone who was really good, and I just got on a call and I bought him lunch. I said, okay, let's go out and have lunch and talk about this. So then he started to talk to me about, I guess, why he did it, talk to me about his training program, talk to me about things like nutrition, which is something I never thought about, right? So how much gels should I consume, or what should I eat during a race? And then you start reading about it and looking at the science behind it. So I think like, if you're genuinely interested in something, you spend the time to find someone who has done it before and ask them, or you can read about it, right? There's so much, like people just blog about this stuff all the time. Even on YouTube, if you go on there, you can actually sort of unlock so many different things and understand and learn different things. So I think it's all down to how much passion you have to actually want to do something, and just make sure that your mind says, yes, I can do this. Yeah, and you'll figure it out along the way. That's why I always think like nothing's impossible.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
But this brings
Perhaps
back to a book, right, that I read like growing up, and it was Richard Branson's autobiography about, it's called Losing My Virginity, and it's a super good book about his life, right? Just about how he just did everything he wanted, and he had this dream or this goal, and he just just made it through, and I guess getting to where he is today. So just keep dreaming, and that's something I've always like aspired to do, to do and think about.
yeah, that sounds amazing. To the audience, take note, remember to read Losing My Virginity. And so just to wrap up the sports section of the interview, so any future goals or something that you want to do in 2022?
I've got a couple of triathlons coming out. So I guess beating my previous year's time, that's one big thing. But I think it's also, there's a cycling goal, which is quite silly, that I put down. So I ride, last year I did about 8,000 kilometers of cycling. I think this year I want to try to hit 10,000 kilometers. So spending a lot more time cycling. I started mountain biking early last year. And I just want to get better at mountain biking. So I'm trying to, maybe think about some races that I could attend, and they're kind of downhill mountain bike races. So how do I improve technicality? How do I just get better at it? I guess, yeah, these are things I want to do.
That sounds amazing, and we're sure you're gonna achieve it. So Win, you wanna jump in?
Yeah, Mark, I just want to ask, have you read Can Hurt Me by David Goggins?
No, I haven't, but I want to. My friends keep sending me a lot of Goggin videos, and it's
David Goggins.
Yeah, the guy's a beast.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've read the book, and I'm not sure whether it's the same as Losing Virginity, but
yeah, it's different. Right? I mean, same mindset, right? Essentially, just you can do anything you want.
Yeah, that's what the book essentially is talking about. And I just wanted to ask, trying to relate your whole endurance sports to your career hardships. I'm not sure if you could share a bit about what was the lowest point in your career, with both companies, and whether the endurance sports aspect of your life actually helped you overcome that obstacle.
Let's see. I think I can't remember which year it was, but there was a year that we were trying to fundraise, and we nearly ran out of cash. And that was tough because you've got to pay payroll. You've got expenses to pay, and yeah, that was a really tough time. And I suppose it's one, you got to be strong for the whole organization. Second, knowing that everyone's depending on you to raise this money. I think that was a really tough time. But because of the team around me, because of obviously my partner as well, and our shareholders, we were able to make it through that period quite well. Yeah, but that was a low time, sleepless nights and all that. But if you ask any founder, I think a lot of people go through a very similar period in their life, and there's always ups and downs, right? So I suppose it's how many hard knocks can you take and still get up and keep fighting.
So do you think the fact that you can run so much is part built into your mind? Your competitive nature is you just never want to give up?
Yeah, I think it's just sort of built. I mean, obviously there are days when I'm just absolutely tired, and you're like, man, why am I doing this? You just question so many things, right? And I guess that's why writing things down are important, because you're gonna have days when you just feel like, okay, I feel amazing, I'm top of the world. Next day you're like, oh my God, why am I doing this? I hate life. This is so difficult. I don't know what I'm gonna do. So everyone goes through these things, right? And write things down, and just push through it. Always know that if there's a low, I always know that there's always going to be an up. So on my lowest days, I know that it can't be low forever.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, that was really inspirational. Somebody write that down. So yeah, let's move on to social causes. We really respect the fact that your passion for endurance sports has led to significant contributions towards certain social causes. For instance, you cycled 200 km to raise money for refugees and help with pet shelters during the White Flag movement. Our impression from this is that you're translating your love for exercise to also help out others. Could you tell us if these social causes are close to your heart?
Yeah, so this was actually, I think last year in July, I was thinking of how do I raise money, right? And what can I do to help? So my partner basically said, why don't you connect things that you really love doing? One, it's, you could be cycling or running. And because it was during the lockdown, the initial idea was to like maybe cycle around Malaysia or like run somewhere super far. But in the end, because of lockdown, we had to do something indoors. So I said, okay, I'll cycle 2,000 I think it was 2,000 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers over a 3-week period. And I'll just use this to raise cash and awareness for two primary causes. One is animal welfare. So because I really believe in adopting animals and so adopt, not shop, essentially. And I realized that, okay, there are a lot of these shelters who are caring for dogs, for different animals, for cats, who do need funds. And people need to understand that, the best thing you could do to help them is to adopt, an animal or a dog. So that was one cause that I felt passionate about. The second cause was refugees. So my sister works with an organization here called HEI, Health Equity Initiative. And she works very much with the refugee community here in Malaysia. There's a huge community of them out here who are being exploited. So I think by creating that awareness that there are refugees in this country and that they do need like funds. So yeah, then that was the second cause that I connected with and decided to do that. And especially during the whole COVID period, because people were eating, whatever they earn on a day-to-day basis was used for, funding their daily lives. So it was basically hand to mouth straight away. And because of COVID, a lot of restaurants were shut, so you don't get a lot of them working. They can't earn money, for example. So it was very tough for a lot of these people. So again, it was creating that awareness for that community. I mean, there's so many other communities, right, that need help. But I guess we had to select a few that I felt passionate about, and these were the two. So yes, connecting sport to that. There were so many other friends were doing big things, like very different things, right? Using their companies to also create awareness, raising funds, doing deliveries of food. I think it was good to see everyone helping and trying to do something during that period.
Yep, that sounds amazing. I do resonate with the fact that everybody should have some social causes at heart, close to their hearts, because it really makes us part of something so much bigger than us. And thank you so much, Mark, for contributing to the society. So for the last question, the final question to sum up the interview, what is the one piece of advice that you wish you were given when you were our age?
Ooh, that's tough. But what did I mention just now about I said writing, right? If someone told me that I could like journal or just like mind map life, I think that would be really cool. If I did that early on, maybe I wouldn't be where I am today. I'm not sure, but but okay, I think that a big thing that I've always held true to myself was just having a very open mind. Just having that belief that you can do anything you want, that you don't have to conform to what society wants you to do. And I guess I've always like tried to live by that.
Yeah, mind mapping and journaling to have a bird's eye view on everything.
Yeah, and just not being restricted, right? Just believe that you could do anything you want to do. I think I was quite lucky when I was growing up that my parents always said I could do whatever I want to do except for my uni course choice. But but they're very, very supportive, very supportive of things that I wanted to do in life, like whether it was sport, whether it's like going out and setting up my own business. taking the risk and trying something new, coming back to Malaysia or even staying on in Australia, like I was given that freedom to do what I wanted, and they always supported me. So that was really, really great. But I think it's important for everyone to know that, you have that opportunity to just free your mind and don't let don't conform, right?